Hello, viewers. This is the YouTube channel Lex Consilium Foundation, and I'm Major General Neelendra Kumar on the playlist in Similia talking to Senior Advocate Sudhesh Pai, Chandu Daphtary, who was the first Solicitor General of. Now, the first question, where you have devoted some very and collected some very interesting material on Daphtary, and I turn to page 321, and that is the beginning when Daftari had just started his practice, and his father was keen to know as to how his son is doing, and the query was directed at JD and Virarity. So, what was the reply given by him? Would you just explain the circumstances and the response?
Though Kishan Daftari, Chandubai, as he was famously known, as you said, was one of our most eminent advocates. He was all charm. And he came back from England after being called to the bar, and his father, who was a well known solicitor himself, put him under the tutelage of J.D. Inverarity, John Duncan Inverarity, perhaps the greatest advocate who practiced in the Bombay High Court. And when the father inquired how the son was faring, it seems Inverarity just took him outside the chamber where the gardener was digging out some sand and mud and said, "Look at that. So I am doing that to your son, digging out all the unnecessary material from his mind, from his head." So he said it is important to unlearn all the unnecessary things so that you have enough space in the head to keep what is essential.
So, unlearning is also important before one
Yes,
can really move on the
learn.
path of wisdom,
Yes.
judicial wisdom. Some years down the line, it was practiced amongst the junior advocates and others in Bombay High Court. They used to be on the lookout for a cigar outside the courtroom. What was this mystery behind this?
Cigar outside the courtroom and juniors chasing it is what said by none other than Chief Justice Yashwant Chandrachud in the obituary reference to Daftari, who passed away in February 1983. Seems as Advocate General, Daftari would be in his chamber, and when he was informed that that the case is about to reach, he would just rush out of his chamber with the cigar in his mouth. And when he reached the court, he would just keep the cigar on the stone railing outside the court, go in, argue his case, then come out, take that cigar, light it again, and move on. Junior lawyers would know when they see the cigar outside on the railing that Daftari was in that court.
Okay,
And
that was the indication.
that was an indication.
Okay. There is a very well known case known as Balsara's matter. What was the role or the stand that Chandu Daftari took in that case?
Well, Sara's case is the first prohibition case where the government of Bombay imposed prohibition. Morarji Desai was the government, and I think it was Morarji Desai's government that imposed it. And it fell to Daftari as Advocate General to defend the government policy and
That
order
was his duty and role expected from him.
of the Advocate General. But he had famously said sometime before that, now that India is a republic, and if you don't have a pup, it would only be a relic.
So,
These
so
are
very
some
witty.
kind of statements that perhaps only Daftari could come out with.
Yes.
And of course, he did defend the
Prohibition policy.
prohibition. And in the course of that, the Zarwanji engineer, who was leading for the petitioners, people like Nani Palkiwala being juniors.
Yes.
And on this side, for the government with Chandu Daftari leading, one of the junior counsel was Homi Sirvai for the
Okay.
government. And engineer contended that the prohibition would even prevent them from using alcohol in medicines or unicolon, etc., etc. Daftari is supposed to have interjected saying it's not just alcohol that goes to the head and intoxicates. And to a question from Chief Justice Chagla, what else? He famously said, "Power, my lord, power. That what intoxicates the weak and the powerful, they lie." That was his. That
Chagla
was his.
must have appreciated that. Yes.
Yes, but the chief minister Morarji Desai was very offended by that also, and it is said that from the next day there were stenographers in the courtroom from the chief minister to take down every word of what the Advocate General was arguing.
Must be reported back to him.
Yes, they all had great regard for one another.
Yes, yes. The mutual
And
regards were there.
yes, and
Yes.
to complete the story of Balsara's case, Daphtary did not wait for the rejoinder. It fell to Sirvai to do that job. And Sirvai did it with great passion because he was a teetotaler and believed in teetotalism fully. So for him, it came very naturally to defend the prohibition. The case went to the Supreme Court from the judgment. Bombay High Court, virtually the government succeeded almost fully. Matter went up to the Supreme Court, came up before, I think, a bench presided over by Justice Fazal Ali, of which Patanjali Shastri was a member.
Yeah.
And so Settlevad led the arguments with Daphtary, Advocate General, being the second in command. And interestingly, Patanjali Shastri, South Indian Tamil Brahmin, total teetotaler, was interested in knowing many things about liquor. What he asked Settlevad, what is a peck,
Yes.
etc., etc. And Settlevad expressed his ignorance, confessed his ignorance, and said, "My lord, I think I would not be in a position to give you satisfactory answers, but my learned friend Chandu Daphtary would be able to answer all the questions."
So he was better qualified
Yes,
to
yes,
to take on that question from the court.
yes.
And
Those are some interesting parts of Valsara's case in the Supreme Court.
it is also said that Chandu Daftari once remarked that he believes in minimum work and maximum results, or in other words, for the results to be gained, to put in minimum work for that. Now, what was the rationale behind this?
I think, this is well known, but how he did it, I think we wouldn't know. That is perhaps the genius of Daftari. But the fact remains that he did not believe in, he said, work is a four-letter word. He didn't believe in it too much. He always somehow had the capacity to go to the root of the matter on facts, put it across very elegantly with such charm that, in fact, Justice Chandrachud again in the obituary reference said the problem simply dissolved when Daftari charmed through the whole thing. Therefore, it's said that he did not spend much time on, and this also, there is another incident of Daftari attending parties every evening, even when, he had heavy briefs to argue the next day.
Right.
And Chief Justice John Bumau, "Oh, how is it possible?" And Daftari replied, "Enter to Brute, you're also asking me this."
There's something great. You have also, have you got anything else you want to add here?
Yes, I'll just give you one actual instance which Chief Justice Malimat told me.
Yes.
He had, as a young lawyer, briefed Daftari in a matter. Daftari had said, "Leave the file." And next morning, Malimat found that Daftari had not even untied the ribbon. He said, tell me, as they walked into the courtroom.
Yes.
Tell me, what is it?" Then something just went. The case was called. He stood up and said, "My lord, this is a criminal matter, and that is this evidence and that evidence." And so the judges told him, "Mr. Daphtary, the question is whether we should rely on this evidence or that." "Precisely, my lord, precisely. That's the point. I think, therefore, your lordship should grant leave granted."
It also shows that he was one with the tremendous sort of presence of mind, ready
Actually,
wit,
yes.
and he could anticipate as to what sort of argument or what would be the query from the court,
Would come
stance
from
of the
the
court.
court. Yes,
Yes.
yes. He could read the
And
judges.
in the same wake, page 327, you have given a very good illustration of a situation that Justice D.P. Madan was there in the court, and at one end was Fali Nariman, who was relatively junior at that point of time,
Yes, yes,
having
yes.
regard to Daftari, and
Yes.
there was Daftari was seen trying to clear his throat or cough. What had happened in that situation?
This was sometime in the late 60s when Daphtary had just demitted office as Attorney General. And of course, as well, Nariman was a young boy virtually then, in his 30s, perhaps not even 40, and arguing before Justice Madden. Daphtary was for the respondent, and he went on, as you said, clearing his throat and coughing. So the judge said, "Mr. Daphtary, it looks like you're not keeping very well. Have a glass of water. Please sit down. Please relax." He said, "No, my lord, there's nothing. The problem is not my throat. The problem is the arguments of my young learned friend, which I am not able to swallow."
They are not going down.
Yes.
Right. Something that's fantastic, the way to put it across. Would you
Yes.
like,
In
you
fact, that
have
is,
included a few
yeah,
instances of Daftari's humor and wit.
yes,
So
yes.
at the end of your chapter on Daftari, would you like to recount a few
Yes,
for the
yes.
readers, for the audience here?
In fact, it's famously said that there is no high court in India which has not rung with Daftari's wit and humor at
Okay.
some point or the other.
Yes.
In fact, talking of Nariman himself, Nariman mentioned this to me almost towards the end of his life, an anecdote which he had forgotten, he said, until he was reminded that they were, Nariman was appearing for the petitioner, especially petition for admission. Daftari was for the other side.
Opposite
And
side. Yeah.
yeah, when one of the objections that Nariman raised was that Daftari's client, while he had participated in the trial, he did not participate in the appeal.
Yes.
And so, how come he's taking a chance in the appeal, further appeal to the Supreme Court? Daftari, it seems, in his usual manner, just laughed and said, Lord, this is life. Life is like a moving train. You get on to the train, you get down on some platform, you run with the train, you get on to it in another station, life goes on. So it is with litigation. Finished. Nariman said my mouth was shut. The judges did not even care to look at me. Daftari had his way and
Yes.
present his case.
Yes.
These are the kind of instances in the Chief Justice's court when he was the Attorney General, Chief Justice Gajendra Gadkar. The power failed for some time, and then, of course, power was restored, and the table lamp on the Chief Justice's table flickered. The Daftari said, "Oh, my lord, the light has come where it is needed most."
That was good. It has
And
come when it is needed most. Yes.
And Chief Justice said, Yes, Mr. Daftari, we need it. There is the other incident of his, the famous, the unhappy attack in the Chief Justice's court by virtually a madman in 1968, 68 or 69, when Hidayatullah was the Chief Justice.
He
Someone,
had rushed out with a knife.
yes, yes, yes. And Grover had some injury. The other had minor bruises, but I think Grover was hospitalized for a day. And Daftari went to call on him and then very mischievously said, Oh, my lord, they know. They hit you at your weakest spot. Grover had injury on the head.
Yes. He was attacked at his weakest
At his
place.
weakest spot,
Okay.
yes. And there are many, many such,
Yes.
of course, he could be devastating too. There is the incident in Bombay when he was citing some case. The judge did not have the book, and so he passed on his law report. There was some insect, some bug in it. This is one of those very famous anecdotes
Yes.
about Daftari. And the judge, who was relatively junior on the bench, Oh, Mr. Daftari, there is a bug here. Yes, my lord. A very ambitious bug to have traveled from the bar to the bench.
But
Then to another judge,
he would put it across in such a way that nobody could take offense at it. Yes.
but at the same time, it hit you where it was
Yes.
necessary. When other judge he had said, who had put on weight, duly appointed, had said, what is necessary is to expand your mind, not your waist. There was a unveiling of the portraits of retired judges in the Bombay High Court. And in the course of his speech, he said, and in course of time, my lords, all your lordships would be duly hung.
Will be duly hung when that portrait was there.
Yes.
So this is fantastic. And I'm sure if when the book is in the hand of the readers, then they would enjoy it, not only this, but at other instances also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please be with us. This conversation with Mr. Sudhesh Pai would continue.